All right, so now that we know how to add and subtract polynomials, I thought I would end this particular section with just a small application of explaining why we would, even want to add or subtract polynomials. There's actually many, but here's basically just one example, and this basically comes from the business world. So let me get my pen going here, right? So this is basically a business application. All right, and it basically deals with profit. Now, profit is basically money that comes in, and then we're going to take away the money that goes out. All right, so that's a classic profit situation. So if we let X equal the number of, let's say, units I want to sell. All right, so we're in business, we're going to make a product, and then we're going to, there's a cost to make that product, and then we're going to gain some revenue by selling that product. And so basically it all revolves around, the number of units that I create, right, and sell based off of information that we've got. All right, and again, this oversimplifies stuff because we're only considering one particular object. We know that, many businesses produce many things, but if we just consider one object, it turns out that the revenue, right, is the object times the price. All right, so if I give you the number of objects that I have and multiply it by the price that I sold it, what I get is all the money that came in. All right, and I don't want to get too economical here. You'll learn this in an economics class, but the price is determined by demand, right? And it's essentially a linear equation. So we end up getting something like X times mx plus b. All right, and so we end up with mx squared plus bx, and you can see that we're basically dealing with a second degree polynomial. All right, so for the sake of discussion here, let's just say that my revenue function, right, after we've done all the numbers, is something like negative 1/4 x squared plus 80x, right? I'm just trying to come up with a working example, all right? So, we have the slope of our demand function is negative 1/4, and b is equal to 80, right? And so when I do the multiplication, I get my revenue function, all right? So what about cost? Well, cost basically is a linear function, right? How about I call it capital M plus capital B to be different from the demand we had up here, all right? And so cost, it basically is the variable cost plus the fixed cost. Variable cost is how much it costs to basically produce an item, right? The material, the labor, whatever the case might be, that fluctuates, all right, and changes. So basically, the number of units that I produce and sell times the cost to make them, right, would be my variable cost. The fixed cost is things like rent, right? If I rent a building, maybe I rent material, maybe I rent tools, or whatever the case might be. Those are fixed costs. Those are something I have to pay no matter if I make something or not, right? When I'm in the building, I have to pay something for the building. So for all practical purposes, let's just invent a function here, right? Let's just say our cost is 10x plus 30, right? So my fixed cost is $30, and it costs me $10 to create every single unit. So basically, I have my two functions now, right? So if I come back over here, if I want to know what my profit function is, right, I'm basically going to take my revenue function, which I wrote down as negative 1/4 x squared plus 80x, and I'm going to subtract my cost function, which is 10x plus 30. And what you'll notice what I'm doing here is basically subtracting polynomials. Hence, we have a reason why we're going to be, subtracting polynomials. So what we've learned, right, my profit function, we basically combine, or how about I first distribute out the negative, all right, and then we combine like terms. And right now, the only like terms are those guys right there. So negative 1/4 x squared plus 70x minus 30. All right, so later on in chapter 11, I even think a little bit in chapter 5, right, we're actually going to take a look at this quadratic function in a little more detail. We'll do more things with it. But for now, let's just say that I wanted to know, right, what's my profit, right, if the number of units that I sell, let's say, is 100. right? So we'll do an evaluation. This is something we've done before in our pre-tests and our reviews. So basically, I'm letting the number of units equal X. So wherever I see an X in my profit function, right, I'm going to replace it with 100. And then it basically becomes a calculation, right? So 100 squared basically is 10,000, right? That's going to give us 77,000 minus, 30. All right, and so 1/4 of 10,000, there's a negative, is negative 2,500, right? And then I think this would be, let me do some really quick, right? That's going to be 69.70, right? With regard to money that comes in. So 69.70 minus 2,500, right? It looks like we end up with 4. All right, so my profit, given the functions that we have, right? My profit, if my revenue function was given by this guy, my cost function was given by that line, right? My revenue function is going to be given by that. And if I wanted to know what my profit is, if I created, right, 100 units, then my profit based off of this model would be $4,470. Okay, excuse me for that cough. All right, so there's a quick application of why we would want to add or subtract polynomials. All right, of course, that pretty much wraps up the guided notes section. So please make sure you review and redo examples, get comfortable with them, and then go assess your understanding by doing the quiz and homework set. I'll see all that stuff in Canvas soon. Talk to you later.